You think you know exactly how Blockbuster died, right? You probably picture a stubborn dinosaur getting totally crushed by Netflix's shiny new tech. Oh, and I bet you've heard that famous story about the $40 late fee for Apollo 13 that supposedly started it all. Well, here's the reality check. Netflix didn't kill Blockbuster, and that late fee origin story, it is a total, absolute lie. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to completely tear down the greatest myth in modern business history. I'm serious. Netflix's own co-founder, Mark Randolph, actually went on the record and admitted that the whole Apollo 13 late fee story was just a convenient fiction. It was literally a marketing tool. They crafted it perfectly to attack Blockbuster's biggest, most hated weakness, because everyone hated late fees, right? The actual truth? Netflix was just looking for any scalable e-commerce product they could mail cheaply, and DVDs had just hit the market. But that late fee story? It just sounded so good, and it hit a nerve with literally everyone who ever rented a movie. So to really understand what happened, we have to travel back to the year 2000. The dot-com bubble is bursting. Netflix is absolutely bleeding cash, losing millions on postage and warehousing, and they barely have 400,000 subscribers. They are desperate. So desperate, in fact, that 3 Netflix execs, including Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph, take a miserable red-eye flight to Dallas, Texas. They walk into Blockbuster's towering corporate headquarters, and they practically beg Blockbuster to buy their struggling DVD buy-mail service. The asking price? Exactly $50 million. And how did Blockbuster react? Their CEO, John Antioco, literally struggled not to laugh them out of the 23rd floor conference room. He dismissed Netflix as just a very small niche business. And honestly, can you blame him? In that exact same year, Blockbuster was pulling in over $5 billion in revenue. But here's the kicker. $800 million of that came purely from late fees alone. So from Blockbuster's perspective, paying $50 million for a tiny company whose entire business model encouraged people not to pay late fees, it just seemed completely insane to them. Let's put that into perspective. Late fees made up a massive 16% of Blockbuster's total income. In the business world, this is what we call transactional friction. Blockbuster basically viewed late fees as a necessary tax on your movie night, a way to force you to bring the tape back so someone else could rent it. But that massive pile of cash completely blinded them. They simply could not wrap their heads around Netflix's flat-fee, no-due date model. They couldn't imagine a system where making money was decoupled from a physical plastic box being returned to a store. That failed handshake in Dallas basically set 2 completely different corporate cultures into motion. Blockbuster was entirely obsessed with rules. Their career paths rewarded minimizing risk and squeezing every ounce of profit margin out of their physical stores. But Netflix, they had their backs against the wall. Because they didn't have storefronts to manage, they adopted a radical, asset-light culture based on freedom and responsibility. They poured all their resources into algorithmic curation, literally writing code to learn what you liked and recommend what you should watch next. Now, right about now, you might be wondering, wait a second, didn't Blockbuster even try to fight back? The popular myth is that Blockbuster just stuck its head in the sand, hugged its VHS tapes, and completely ignored the internet while Netflix took over the world. But guess what? That is absolutely false. They didn't ignore digital media at all. In fact, Blockbuster launched a massive digital counterattack that actually had Netflix absolutely terrified. Enter Total Access, launched in 2006. This was a brilliant hybrid program that weaponized Blockbuster's biggest asset, their thousands of physical locations. The deal was, you could rent a DVD online, get it in the mail, and then literally walk it into a local Blockbuster and swap it for a free movie right there on the spot. It was a massive, immediate hit. By late 2006, Blockbuster had snatched up 1.5 million subscribers. They were draining customers from Netflix so incredibly fast that Netflix's CEO, Reed Hastings, literally approached Blockbuster to suggest a truce and a buyout. Netflix genuinely feared for its survival. And Blockbuster's digital strategy didn't stop at mail-order DVDs either. In 2007, Blockbuster actually acquired a streaming platform called MovieLink, which was created by 5 major Hollywood studios. Think about that for a second. Blockbuster completely saw the shift to streaming video coming, and suddenly, they possessed a digital library of thousands of major studio titles. They were perfectly positioned to absolutely dominate the streaming era by offering digital content right alongside their massive retail empire. Okay, so here's the part where your brain probably gets a little stuck. If Blockbuster actually had this incredibly successful digital hybrid model, and they just bought a major Hollywood streaming platform, how on earth did they end up filing for bankruptcy just 3 years later? Seriously. If it wasn't a lack of tech innovation that killed this multi-billion-dollar giant, what actually did? The real answer lies in 3 distinct, totally non-technological forces that destroyed the company from the inside out.
Number 1, crippling structural debt. Number 2, incredibly toxic board interference that forced a disastrous change in strategy. And number 3, the absolute catastrophic timing of the 2008 global financial crash. These were the true assassins of Blockbuster.
Let's break down that first fatal wound, the crippling debt. Way back in 2004, Blockbuster was spun off from its parent company, Viacom. But Viacom forced Blockbuster to pay a massive dividend on the way out, requiring the retailer to take out a $900 million loan just to satisfy its parent company. This saddled Blockbuster with a suffocating $1 billion in structural debt right out of the gate. It essentially handcuffed them, making their balance sheets so incredibly fragile that they couldn't heavily invest in long-term digital infrastructure when they needed it the absolute most. And then came the board interference. Remember that incredibly successful Total Access program that had Netflix shaking in their boots? Well, there was a catch. It was a massive loss leader. Every time someone swapped a free movie in store, it cost Blockbuster $2. Enter activist investor Carl Icahn. He waged a proxy fight, grabbed some board seats, and was absolutely furious about the cash burn. He literally orchestrated the firing of CEO John Antioco specifically because Antioco refused to let the company stop losing money on Total Access. The board basically chose short-term cash preservation over winning the long-term digital war. This triggered a rapid, fatal chain reaction. Antioco is pushed out in 2007 and replaced by Jim Keyes. Keyes immediately slashes the online marketing budget, jacks up the prices on the Total Access plan, and violently steers the company entirely back to physical retail, trying to turn them into convenience stores for entertainment. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Literally, just as they intentionally killed their own digital momentum, the 2008 Lehman Brothers collapse occurred. This completely froze global credit markets exactly when Blockbuster desperately needed to refinance that massive billion-dollar debt.
Because the banking crisis made it completely impossible for Blockbuster to refinance, panic set in. The final, crushing blow didn't come from a new Netflix streaming algorithm. It came straight from Hollywood. The movie studios, terrified that Blockbuster was about to go under, suddenly changed their terms. They demanded cash on delivery up front instead of their standard 90-day credit. This created an immediate, insurmountable liquidity squeeze. Simply put, the company just ran out of liquid cash to put movies on their own shelves.
After that, the end came incredibly fast. By 2010, the company that had once dominated Friday nights across the entire globe filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. A year later, Dish Network swooped in and bought the bankrupt scraps at an auction for a mere $320 million. To put that tragic number into perspective, that is a tiny fraction of the company's former $6 billion valuation and about 6 times less than the revenue Blockbuster had generated just a single year prior. Today, out of a peak of more than 9,000 stores spanning the globe, there is exactly one Blockbuster left in existence. It's sitting out there in Bend, Oregon. Just a locally owned, nostalgic relic of a totally vanished empire. It honestly stands as a haunting testament to how quickly an industry titan can be completely erased, not just by a slick new startup, but by a brittle balance sheet and incredibly short-sighted corporate governance.
So what is the real takeaway from this explainer? Interestingly enough, Netflix actually keeps a framed photo of that year 2000 Blockbuster meeting in their lobby to this very day as a powerful lesson. The strategic asymmetry of disruption isn't just about code versus concrete. It's about how early success and heavy assets breed complacency. So I want to leave you with the question to ponder about your own industry. Are comfortable castles blinding us to the catapults being built right outside? Are you so hyper-focused on optimizing today's transactional friction that you are completely ignoring tomorrow's structural debt? Think about it.